Hello and welcome to the Gameweek9 Matchup show on Net That Haul. I'm back, baby, FPL Nima, and I'm joined by my co-host Gabriel at FPLens, just over 24 hours after he's done the review of Game Week 8 with Lucien at FPL_teacher. So great little 1 hour episode if anyone wants to just recap how last game week ended now that we're coming out the cobwebs of the international break. But today we will, of course, focus on the matchup show for the next game week. So Gabe, I'm glad you got your hat in time. We saw in the live chat there was demand from the fans. Podner, shout out to you for asking for the Bigfoot cap. I think Gabe was wondering what you meant. I thought you meant best friend. He may have thought you meant boyfriend, but I don't know.
I was hoping, but you kind of shattered my dreams. And when you said best friend, I went to get Bigfoot.
I love it. Thank you to all the haulers in the chat as well. So yeah, Podner, as we said, Claire FPL, lovely to see you as well. Howdy, Ballroom Jam. Thanks for tuning in. We will start your question for the Q&A for sure. We've got a couple more shout outs as well. GV Subramaniam, good to see you. Hopefully I pronounced that right, mate. And William the Jaeger, good evening. So that's everyone. We'll interact throughout the show. We'll put your messages up on the screen. We'll try to do a poll and we'll just keep it interactive. So if we don't get to read out your comments, we are going to put them up on screen for the YouTube viewers, but I think it's better for the podcast listeners to not mix the two formats too much. So generally the Q&A we'll do at the end unless it's relevant to the matchup. But yeah, let's go right into it. 1 minute 40 in. I think we'll go straight into the philosophy, Gabe, and then shout out to Mariner as well, who's traveling this week with work and in a different city every day. So we're thinking of you, brother.
Thinking of Mariners overboard today. You were overboard the past couple of weeks, Nima. Glad to see you back at the helm here and looking good and bright. It's nice to have you back. And we await the day of the reunion. Let's call it that. We're looking forward to that reunion. So the FPL philosophy of the week for Game Week 9 comes to us from Rumi. I believe I've used this one before, but I thought this was particularly appropriate for this game week, given the recent war that's broken out in the Gaza Strip and Israel. So the quote is from Rumi, and it says, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." And the connection with FPL is like if you think of light is many things. It's the source of the divine, but it's also like clarity and knowledge. So like it's in the areas where we've gone wrong in FPL, where we can kind of get better understanding of our mistakes, why we made those mistakes, and I think we have to by focusing on those areas and seeing where FPL has hurt us, and we've all been hurt by FPL. By really looking at these places where that wound is, we can gain a better understanding of how to proceed forward.
Nice. I always love it when you pick Rumi. It's good to see that my nation has managed to bring a few kind of poets, philosophers, well-known men who contributed to civilization, and women too. So it's nice to see that in this dark world, as you say, we live in. It's been really difficult for me to even think about FPL for all the world events. So I'm not going to go into that today, but I think my heart goes out to everyone who's suffering. And obviously we wish humanity on everyone. And we hope that everything that goes wrong in the world, it's always been like this for thousands of years, that I just hope we can find love and get through it and minimize human loss, because it is really a tragedy, whatever way you look at it. Any innocent lives lost are not great. So I'm glad I can say that, because that's one of the things I didn't even know how I would talk about FPL without addressing everything that's been happening in the world first. And I think we live in a very crazy time. And yeah, I just send love to everyone out there and hope that times will be better to all our friends. So yeah, we're thinking of you if you're suffering, and do DM us. We're always here for a chat. So not just saying that, do reach out.
And then just a quick and compassionate stay sharp moment. If you find yourself defending any side that's killing, if you're defending killing, then you need to take a better look, I think, at the situation. Just don't defend killing of humans.
Yeah, like I don't. Yeah, you know, as you say, it's the philosophy moment, so it kind of fits in quite nicely here, I think. And it would be crazy to not bring it up, but yeah, any kind of killing, I don't think that's something you want to be condoning. And I would try to catch myself if I ever felt that way. And, you know, I'm not going to deny that when you're growing up, you grow as a person. And sometimes you find that you think things that later you question why you thought them. So I think it's good to stay open-minded and listen to new information and adapt and not be too rooted like a 1,000-year-old tree in your position. Like just
Allow the light to enter you, Nima.
Yeah, so I think that seems like it kind of fit in well. And now we will go straight to the FPL. 5 minutes in, it's not bad. It's probably quicker than most times, to be frank. We've got 18 people here live. Honestly, we love you so much. We appreciate it. Since we actually got nominated as a finalist in the Football Content Awards, I've not been on the show due to my health. So I'm glad to be back and obviously, hopefully, continue to monitor that and get well. But I feel well enough to be back. And that's the main thing. So, yeah, thank you all who voted for us and nominated us and helped us reach our third consecutive final. Like, I actually can't believe it. The other 8 finalists in our categories, FPL podcast and FPL video, they're all like 50,000 plus, 300,000 subscribers. You guys here, we just hit our milestone. Yeah, 2,700 subscribers. We just hit our milestone on YouTube. We get like 500 to 1,000 people on podcast a week. We love all of you. And we're just like, we're honestly like the minnow of the FA Cup. Like, we're like the non-league team there competing against league teams. And yeah, I can't wait for the finals on the 16th of November at Anfield. And hopefully I'll do you guys proud. Maybe we can bring a podium finish back.
Absolutely. We are the minnows, but we're the power generated by the few haulers we have is immense. So just appreciate all of the support from our haulers.
Yeah, so on to the FPL. Good shout out to Val as well. Thanks for tuning in. Good evening. We've got Mike Halpin as well. Ola, and we've got Multi as well. Good to see you. We will answer the Saka question when we get there. But do you want to look at the quick, I guess, the overview slide? This is for any podcast listeners. 6 minutes 40 is a good time. You can see the whole Gameweek 9 matchups summarized all on one page. But we will then obviously break it down. We won't spend long here. It's just any major call outs, or do you want to go into the matchups and review it at the end?
Yeah, no, I think this is just here for anybody to come back and make reference to if they want to see like the whole thing laid out. There are some interesting kind of like disparities. Like if you want to check out West Ham, low NetxG number but high like a goal predictor numbers. Or the same thing with Brighton, which is really interesting against Man City. So just as a point of reference, but we can go straight to the matchups.
Cool. I've put that down as Gameweek 9 FPL Matchups Summary. So anyone who wants to come to that timestamp, you guys go for it. So yeah, I can't believe it. Liverpool versus Everton, Merseyside derby, early kickoff on Saturday, 12:30 p.m. They say that since Klopp came, I think like Liverpool have had like, I think it's 14 to 16. 14, I think, sorry, early kickoffs after an international break. And the next second team, I think it's Tottenham with like less than half, 5 or 6. So it's not great. Like I do question that Liverpool seem to always get the early kickoff after international break. So if you're a Liverpool fan out there, any Scousers out there, I do kind of empathize with your situation. And sounds like 2-3 of your players have just played late Wednesday night, like midnight Wednesday UK time in South America. They're going to fly back. Darwin's already carrying a knock. Like it's all, Diaz, like it's a bit tough, I think. But that aside, Merseyside derby, right? That's exciting. And I think I'll read out the very high level NetxG for both and let you talk about the matchups. But yeah, I just wanted to paint the narrative of it's been 2 weeks break. I've not been on the show for like 3-4 weeks. Merseyside derby felt too exciting to pass up and insulting and creating conspiracy theories about who gets what time slots. I love to ruffle some feathers in the football world. So, I've been calling out official FPL from day one. So 3-4 years in, here we are. Liverpool next year 2.5, Everton 1.26. So, although it's at Goodison Park, it does feel that Liverpool away, it doesn't really change the NetxG's opinion on the quite obvious winner in this matchup. Is there anything on the, I guess the FDR agrees, but even more extremely so, 6.9 for Liverpool for attack, and I think it's out of 7 max. So I don't think I've ever seen that often. And 1.2 for attack on Everton. So this is this isn't looking great for Everton on either metric. Any saving graces for them? Or is it looking, because they've been looking good, right? They have like on paper some of the best XG in the league. They've not quite converted all of them, right? But you would think they're an up and coming team rather than a down and sinking team in this stage.
Yeah, and I think the up and coming nature of them is really kind of, it shows up in the goal predictors, the shots matchup goal predictor and the shots on target goal predictor. And that kind of lights up with green, and you see like I mean both metrics predict a goal for Everton, so there's something, right? But the thing is, we've seen how Everton play this fixture in the past, right? This is this is the only fixture where I like Jordan Pickford as a person, because he just like the shit housing, the housery that comes from this guy is amazing, and it's so much fun to watch. And it's also really fun to watch the Liverpool fans melt down when he does it, when he wastes time, when he like yells at the fans. It's like it's going to be great. But this is a derby, so derbies are really hard to predict. Liverpool or Everton are going to line up likely, and I mean they've been in a 4-4-1-1. Jack Harrison came into play last game week. Lucian talked about him. He obviously did really well getting the goals. The one goal, Garner got another, and Doucouré got another as well. So that right side has been bolstered. And that right side, so Jack Harrison will likely be up against Tsimikas. And I don't know. I have to say, I don't think Tsimikas is much of a downgrade from Robertson. So, but Tsimikas he's maybe less disciplined than Robertson is. So there could be some hope for Jack Harrison there on the right hand side. But obviously, attacking Liverpool, it's always like attacking their right side. Even if they move a center back over to support Trent Alexander-Arnold, there are always opportunities, and that's going to be Dwight McNeil on that side. So I could see some deliveries from Dwight McNeil into Calvert-Lewin, and Liverpool really making this a complicated, or Everton really making this a complicated game for Liverpool. Despite, like, if you look at Mariners metrics, just for the podcast listeners, 2.2 predicted XG for Liverpool, 3.7 predicted big chances, almost 12 shots in the box predicted for Liverpool. So, I mean, I think, but then there's a question of like who for Liverpool, who's starting, right? Who's going to start? Salah is the obvious, but you're obviously, I think Darwin Nunez has an injury. He picked up he had a cramp. He had a cramp last game, so
yeah, that's the main thing.
He likely won't play in this one. But I think Cody Gakpo is back. Do you know anything about that?
No, I haven't seen on Gakpo yet. I've kind of only just really switched back into FPL, I'd say today. So I've tried to avoid it, and I didn't even really watch the England games. I just saw the updates at the end.
So, well, I'll just turn people's attention quickly to the average position maps there, because the one on the far right, it's Everton. It's upside down just so it's the same direction. But we look at the first Everton one, the one in blue there, the third map from left to right. And we've seen how you see how high Everton are. This was against Bournemouth, right? Which they won 3-0. But they've been playing like this quite high, not this high, but against bigger teams, they'll be roughly around midfield. But I expect them to go back to the final position map there. That's from the last time they played Liverpool last season, where Everton lost 2-0. So you see how deep they are in that one, kind of like behind midfield. And I expect them to be deeper and more compact away at Anfield.
Yeah, no, I think that's what I was going to say. The other thing I was going to say is that obviously I said it was a Goodison Park, and after looking at the data, I see it does say away Everton. So I think I just kind of saw the title and got carried away there. But in terms of just a few things, obviously Salah and the captaincy, we won't talk too much about, because I think there will obviously be ample time to discuss all the captaincy options at home this week when we get to the metric. But there was questions about DCL. So GV asked, will DCL be able to score a goal in this match? So I think you've given your thoughts on that. And, he's what, 5.8 million? I think if we can continue watching how he gets on, it will be one to keep an eye out on. It's quite a nice price point. I know he's not historically in the last few years stayed fit much, but the season he was fit, he was incredible. So I definitely feel like he's someone I would keep an eye out on. And, he would, in my opinion, he'd be similar price to Watkins if he hadn't been injured for seasons after seasons after seasons, because they were originally at a time like similar kind of I guess bracket of player in FPL pricing wise, but Watkins has continued to exceed and be available and do well in return. Calvert-Lewin hasn't proven that part yet, apart from like that.
Well, and Villa have also developed in that direction, whereas Everton haven't yet.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe they are. So yeah.
Okay, so we've also got William just adding a final thought on Liverpool having only lost once against Everton at Anfield, but there had mostly been goals from both sides. So kind of that idea of clean sheets could be a bit of a worry. And yeah, Doucouré, who he mentions, I think he's someone I brought in draft in the last couple of weeks when I needed a player. They were playing Bournemouth. I think he's exciting. I don't think I would
Mhm.
ever own him in FPL. I'll be honest. I'm sorry. Like, I just like I get it. He's great, but I just feel like it depends on the matchup, and is it a matchup where he's going to be like a runner into the box? And I think he's fantastic. He takes a lot of shots, but he's still Everton, as we were saying. And yeah,
It's
I'm not
so
so sure.
punty. It's so punty.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think on that note though, with Robertson out and Trent obviously quite expensive, I do feel that the biggest edge non-Haaland teams have at the moment is that they can have Trent and Trippier, where others may have Burn and like a fodder, and
Mm.
that's kind of where I'm seeing and the difference in a lot of teams between the Haaland and non-Haaland teams.
I have to say, I think Trent is an absolute asinine pick. I cannot respect that pick. Like, you're spending almost 8 million, right? When you have
8
all these
million, yeah.
midfielders who are incredible for a guy that's not going to get clean sheets.
Yeah, it's not great.
And has been benched.
Obviously, like when you look at seasons past, you would think that like he's someone you would always auto pick and have for most periods of good fixtures for Liverpool. So I think the fact that you can't have really Son, Salah, Haaland, and then have a Trent as well, let alone a Trent and Trippier, I feel like the only viable route in which I would have him right now is if I lost one of those free premiums, and I don't know which one or if I would be willing to. So fair play to those who've kind of gone ballsy and got rid of Haaland, and that might work out. You never know, right?
Yeah, I no, and it totally might. I mean, he hasn't been lighting it up maybe as much, but back to remember when we were discussing whether Trippier was worth the whatever 1.5 million or 2 million over Botman, right? And that's like a big deal. And you know, people were on one side, people are on the other side. Trent is what is he? He's like 3.5 million more than Botman and plays for a worse defense. He's a million more than Trippier. Like, you're gonna go to Trent? I don't know. If you have that money, go to Trippier. You're gonna go
Yeah,
Trent
but
and
this is what I
Trippier,
mean though.
and
So if you
then you're
have
playing what, Neto
Trippier,
and Gordon, and you don't have like Saka. Like, what? Like, I don't know.
no, but the
Or you're
non-Haaland teams have everyone. That's what I mean. So they just don't have Haaland, but then they can
right, but
have all these
that's
players.
what I'm saying. Like, even
So for me, it
non-Holland
doesn't
teams,
feel worth it though.
right, even non-Holland teams, they went for the upside in the other players, right? Like, that's to spread their money so they could get more of these kind of like, but when you're looking for upside, right, you need like double returns, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's why you're
When do
looking.
you ever expect Liverpool to keep a clean sheet?
So to get that and
Only
the
when
attacking
Allison
return.
bails them out. And it's going to take Allison to bail them out, which he can, but you're going to invest an extra 3 million on a
3
player
million.
because the goalie can sometimes bail him out of a clean and get him a clean sheet. I don't know. It might work out. I know a lot of very respectable managers go in that direction. I know Craig Kemp from the Man On Pod. He's fully on board with this. He's using
I
it as
think
a way to
Andy has him as
differentiate.
well. Yeah, I think Andy
Yeah.
Martin as well, friend of the show, he has him. Let us know in the chat if you have Trent, and if
Yeah,
you
if you
don't,
have
are you
Trent and if you're
thinking about
thinking of,
Simicast?
because I get it as a way to differentiate, but I just think that you're living that the Trent that you have in your mind is not the Trent from this season, or hasn't been yet. You know, the same thing could have been said of Trippier a few weeks ago, right? And then he turned it
I guess
on.
the
So that
change
can
is very
always change.
fast, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing. So do you go before the signs are all there and try and beat everyone there and just take advantage of those big points, like the people who got the Watkins 23 or 24 pointer before everyone
Mhm.
bought him? So it's like if you can be
Mhm.
that guy and maybe you think Simicast is that guy. Maybe you think for a few weeks I'm gonna go there. So let us know if you are.
Tsimikas is what, 3.9?
I don't know that I'll have a look
So
quickly just to confirm. Yeah.
is Trent 4
No, he's
million more?
4.4. He's 4.4 because
Okay,
he
4.4.
used to be back. You're thinking of there was seasons. He's been around
Yeah.
for
Those
years.
seasons, yeah.
Yeah, there's been
Yeah.
many years where Simicast, it feels like an old fling. Like every few seasons, like he's there for a few weeks whenever Robbo's not around. So I do like that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's go to the next matchup, though. We will come back to these guys, as we said anyway, right? Because when we get to the captaincy, obviously the Liverpool assets are going to be a key part of that discussion. So I think it's a good time to go to the next matchup, and then we'll obviously shout a few people out and put the messages up on the screen for the Q&A at the end as we go. So this one's Bournemouth versus Wolves. I don't think we're probably going to spend that long on this one, so don't worry, guys. The last one was 10 minutes plus. This one, we'll try to do 5 minutes and under, I think, for some of these matchups.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So Bournemouth versus Wolves. I'll give out the quick data for the podcast listeners, and then you can break into the matchup. So it's Bournemouth 1.08 NetxG versus Wolves 1.55. So it's pretty close, but in Wolves' favour. Could be a scrappy 1-0 or maybe even a 1-1 draw. I think that's what I would take from the NetxG. Interestingly, the FDR slightly favours Bournemouth, but at that point, you're nitpicking the numbers are so close. It's 0.9 for the Bournemouth attack, and it's 0.1 for the Wolves attack. So yeah, there's not much in it, but overall, I'd say that that's the kind of main discrepancy. Like the FDR probably slightly favours Bournemouth, and on your side, it's actually the Wolves who are being favoured in this situation. In terms of why, I guess in the matchups on the FDR, we're seeing 6.5 shots on target versus 3.4. I think that is for Bournemouth and Wolves. So maybe that's where some of the discrepancy is coming from. And the XG is 2 instead of 0.9 for Wolves. So I think the big chances and the shots on target seem to be maybe the main reason the FDR goes the other way.
Yeah, it does seem to be the shots on target do seem to be kind of like elevating Bournemouth. But even from like if we're looking at it like tactically, I just think Wolves have much more of an established identity right now. And I think the relationship between I think Sasha Kalajdzic is going to have more and more of an impact. He's come in as a sub, and he's just such a perfect target for Neto. And yeah, but I'm looking at, like, for example, so one thing Bournemouth really haven't done is they haven't been able to develop their wide play. You can see in the maps there, especially that right side. Look at the right side for Bournemouth is almost empty, and at least in the game against Everton, right? So I think Bournemouth really needs to get Tavernier more involved and get some delivery from wide areas. If they can do that, then I think there's a really nice chance for Bournemouth here, given the stats. But I think tactically and just kind of player quality and form right now, I would agree with NetxG on this one. Even though I would say the FDR, I mean, between 0.1 and 0.9, I think that's close enough for it to be a toss up. So maybe there isn't that much disagreement.
Yeah, and just quick shout out as well to FPL Nonto, first time listening live from Croatia. Good to have you here. Thank you, mate. So yeah, I think
so I drafted Sasha Kalajdzic in my draft team.
Did you? Okay. I remember you were big on him at the start of the season about them having like another option, a big man to get the ball up to and stuff. But yeah, I guess we haven't seen so much of him just yet. But I do like what I see when I see it, because I think I remember you even calling him out last season. So he's been on the radar for a while. He's not
Yeah,
quite had a
he
chance
got
to
hurt.
make his, yeah, he's not had a quite a chance to get a big run of games into the team and let them maybe build around him. So that'll be interesting to keep monitoring. I do just Neto is obviously someone who has continued to get returns, you know, all kinds of stuff, kind of like random assists from shots on target or all kinds of ways of getting assists throughout the scenes. But I don't know how sustainable his returns this consistently are long term, I'll be honest. And when I did Wildcard last week, I had a choice between him and someone at that kind of price point. And actually, I personally went for Gordon at the time and benched him knowing he was suspended and played my bench fodder for a week. So, yeah, so that's my kind of opinion on the Neto conundrum. I really love him as a player, and I wouldn't be surprised if a kind of traditional Big Six Premier League club goes in and gets him either in January or summer. So I do like him as a player. I just don't like the team he's in so much attacking wise.
I think Wolves are changing. If Hee-chan Huang continues playing the way he's been playing, then and they have that threat kind of from both sides. Hee-chan Huang from one side, Neto from the other side, and both of those players are strong, they're fast, and they can create on their own for themselves. But to have a target, a big target like Sasha Kalajdzic right like in between them, I think I don't know. I think we could see Wolves evolve in a very positive direction here. I get your apprehension now, I don't think I'd be bringing Neto in right now. I prefer Anthony Gordon, for example. He's more of a focal point of the attack and does more things in the box than Neto does in general, and the team attacks more in general. But if you own Neto, I think you're a comfortable owner if you own him,
Yeah,
and
you'd
this
be
is a
happy.
and this is a comfortable matchup, yeah. And if you're thinking of buying Huang, Chan Huang,
I've seen a few
I
actually go for him.
I
Yeah,
I think that's a fun punt, I gotta say.
for
So
those
yeah,
wildcarding in game week 10, maybe if you think they
yeah,
can
he's an
get.
enabler. Go for it.
Maybe Wolves win 3-0 and he gets a brace, like, and then you wildcard the week after, right? Like that would be lottery
Legend.
ticket. Yeah, that so
Yes.
use them if you're wildcarding in game week 10, let us know, and we'll see if there's any crazy punts that are worthwhile for the final game week before your wildcard. Thank you, Colm. Good to see you as well, buddy, and Darnish. Good to see you live. I think we go to the next matchup. Dom Solanke is someone who I'm sure we'll come back to in time, and I think from
Mhm.
about game week 13 onwards, he could be a very interesting option for Bournemouth. So I'll keep an eye on him, but again, not necessarily someone I want to be getting from the team because of the team he plays for. So I have an apprehension for
Mhm.
both these teams, but yeah, I'll keep an eye out on the Huang versus Neto debate. But yeah, Brentford versus Burnley. Again, this is another interesting one because I guess there's some Mbeumo owners still out there, right? And of all the games, like this is not a game you can surely sell him, no matter how poorly Brentford have looked of late. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts? Like, if you had Mbeumo, he's surely still bigger fires to put out than him this week with this matchup, right?
Well, I don't know what happened to the image, so I'll have to fix that when I go back for the thread. So apologies there. I don't know where those numbers came from. Forget the ones in the middle there that say the 1.4, 1.3, 1.5 for Brentford and 2.6, 2.9, 2.4 for Burnley. Forget those numbers. So we'll go Brentford 1.68, Burnley 1.2. Interesting that much closer than you would think, right?
Yeah,
And in that sense, it does not align with the FDR, which has Burnley at negative 1.6. So I mean, I think what it's seeing is actually the matchup. I think Burnley's poor stats are being propped up a little bit by just the shambles that Brentford have been in since losing Rico Henry, basically.
that whole pod that you've mentioned before, right? Obviously, Raya as well from last season. You got
Mhm.
Rico Henry, you got Tony. Like, there's just the hub of creativity has been fully just picked up and pulled out of the team.
And you can see it in the average position maps. Look at the match against United before and after the subs were made. The attacking players for Brentford are all on the right,
Yeah,
and this is the
yeah.
opposite of everything they've done since they've been in the division. So they're doing the opposite. So that's going to take some time. And I think that creates an opportunity for Burnley here. I mean, if you look at Burnley, they seem to favor the left side in attack, especially look at after the substitutions were made against Chelsea. When they're trailing right against Chelsea and they want to push forward, and we can see the kind of like they do push more numbers forward, but everything went to the left, and that's where Brentford have all their players. So I could see just kind of a big, yeah, I guess we're 28 minutes in. We can swear now. A big kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, we're doing
clusterfuck
good.
on. I see a big clusterfuck on one side of the field. So it's basically Brentford's right, Burnley's left, and I think in when you're looking at something like that, I think Brentford just comes out on top. So I think Mbomo could get something here, but I would probably prefer somebody that gets away from the clusterfuck on that side, and that could lead things like kind of tee things up nicely for Wissa.
I'm sure there's still some West owners out there that didn't panic and jump to Alvarez, for example. Another one to add to the list of late travelers from South America, but we'll
Yeah.
talk about that matchup when we get there. So I guess, yeah, Colin saying this is a perfect game for Mbeumo. We've also got Travis. Good to see you, buddy. He actually mentioned a few more players who are all out: Baptiste, Silva, Tamscard,
Yeah.
Sade. So yeah, it's really damaging the creativity, as you mentioned. So we will also talk about Cole Palmer, I'm sure, when we get to the Chelsea section. So keep an eye out for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Let's I think let's keep going. This one's been just over 5 as well. So I think we'll only really go over 5 for like any games where I think you have at least 2 to 3 FPL assets in. Because when you've got 2 to 3 FPL assets in a single matchup, those are the ones that we are most interested to hear if we're going to get a red arrow or a green arrow this week. So yeah, let's see how this
Just
one
really
goes.
quickly on the Mbomo question, if it's ideally set up for Mbomo, I
Yeah.
think it could be. It could be if he's the outlet from the big mess on that side. If he's like furthest forward and he could be the close outlet, and then things could set up for him. But if it's just like too much traffic, that might work against him, and he might be needed to kind of collect and distribute the ball to Wissa. So that's something that it's hard to predict right now. So, but it could be. There's a chance.
I guess what I would say is when I wasn't going to wild card, one of the reasons I would have like kept Mabuemo, and I know some people actually kept him on wild card last week, is for this Burnley fixture with a view to maybe move on straight after. So yeah, I think if I'd held him all this time, I would still like be looking to get this fixture out of him and hope
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
where you take the gains that everyone else didn't get because we all moved on faster than you. So yeah, I think I'll give him this matchup. So yeah, Val says looks like a high scoring match. So you never know. I just don't. I'm not convinced by Brentford. Just after those first 3 4 weeks where they were like a mirage in the desert. Since then, they very much flattered to deceive for me. So not teams I want assets from yet again. But this one is a bit more exciting. Man City versus Brighton. So a lot of people offloaded Man City players. I know I was tripled up on the attack and now just have Haaland. So, the question is, do I start to go back now that the Arsenal fixture's out the way? That's a tough one for Alvarez owners. Obviously, will we know if he's going to start? You would think he does. He started after all the other international breaks, so there's no reason to doubt that. But again, it's just kind of not ideal. He's playing at like midnight UK time yesterday or today on Wednesday, with the match on the Saturday, I think. So yeah, ultimately Brighton, another one to think about because a lot of people offloaded those assets. I know Stupian was injured. Game week 10 onwards, they have fantastic fixtures. So I think if you already have one, like Matoma, like obviously it's a hold in my opinion. You want to keep them for the long run. If you don't, I can't imagine you're looking to bring one in. Keeping a close eye on Ferguson, I'm keeping a close eye on those kind of assets to see if they're going to be more nailed on than previously. And yeah, just I'm looking for maybe 2 players at least, maybe something along those lines when we get to game week 10. So this is a watch and see game, even though I reckon they could do quite well. And I don't think that it's going to be a walk in the park for Man City at all. I think both teams are going to score. It could be quite an entertaining game for the neutrals. I think this might be one of the more entertaining games of the game week, hopefully. But the numbers, and then you can obviously talk more about it, is Man City 1.5 NetxG, Brighton 0.86. And it's actually pretty much identical on the FDR. So it's 1.6 for Man City's attack to 0.9 for Brighton. So that is literally the same. I very rarely see it agree to this extent. It's kind of suggesting a 1-0 or maybe 2-1 Man City win. Something
Or
along
even
those
1-1.
Yeah, maybe even a 1-1. Maybe City doesn't quite get to that half an XG more, right? Half an XG against Arsenal wasn't enough. So who says it will be against Brighton to get the second goal?
Yeah. Actually, we spoke on the show yesterday that Manchester City created in the final 86 minutes of the match created 0.1 xg.
Do you know where
But they dominated, and Arsenal struggled in the first half somehow. I don't know. I don't get that narrative.
half, yeah, at the beginning, Man City looked good, but yeah, I do think when I saw it back, it was that shot. It was like a scuffed header, and Declan Rice like cleared it off the line, and that was like their entire XG in the game.
That was it.
I don't think they actually had a shot. I read from the 60th minute onwards. So yeah, like yeah, I don't know what happened there, man. But I would take that joy, and that really made me feel better amongst all that health stuff that was going on. So that was a nice victory. I took that all the way to the bank. But
I'm sure. I wanted to get you a little taste of it in for this one since Manchester City's up on the board here. I think this one was going to surprise people. Manchester City versus Brighton. I bet, and myself included, I would expect goals in this game. And so when I look at the numbers here, I'm surprised. Like look at Manchester City's shots goal predictor there. It's a lot of red.
Yeah, it's not looking too great for them. But is that because of the Wolves and Arsenal game? Are they weighing in as like 33% of the data set now? Maybe just those 2 out of 6 games.
So it's actually yeah. This is it. It's only their home games.
Oh, okay.
So
So not the Arsenal game at all.
Arsenal's not the Arsenal game. It's
That's
not
not
even
even
in there.
accounted
And
for yet. Yeah.
no, so but the thing is, it's a small sample size, right? I think City have only played 3 home games this season. So small sample size, but in those 3 home games, they've created, let's see, 5 big chances, which is decent, but that's what 1.5 big chances, right, per game. You'd expect more from City,
You would, yeah.
right? They've conceded 4 big chances. Their zonals, they've created a total of 22 chances in 3 home games. That's 7 total chances per game. That's not that much. So then
They've been struggling. It starts to make me question this Haaland captaincy that I just kind of put on my bus team. Didn't think about it. I thought this is the week I get gains on those who sold him, but there's
it's
Son at home, there's Salah at home, like.
But there's Holland at home, and there's Holland
Yeah.
at home coming off of a disappointing result. This is narrative, of course, but disappointing result with Norway against, and this part isn't narrative, against a Brighton team that's just fundamentally flawed in defense.
This is what I mean. This Brighton team, like, this is why
It's
I wanted to captain. Was it Salah last time out, and I didn't. So the last time I didn't, I regretted it. So once I saw it was Haaland v Brighton at home, I was like, I'm not making this mistake again because that Brighton will find a way to turn this into a basketball game. And I say this
yeah,
firsthand. They battered Arsenal at the Emirates last season. I remember it was like, looked like a close game, and then out of nowhere, they won like 3-1 or 3-0. And I remember I was there in the stadium, and Estupinian got one of the goals. I think the third one, like the sucker punch. And I was just like, what? Estupinian just got like a goal, a clean sheet against Arsenal away from home, like out of nowhere. But so for all the times they have the 3-0, equally they lose 4-3, 3-2. Like there's some wild results on Brighton's side. And yeah, so part of me still does think I would almost throw the data out and go fully with the narrative in this one, that Brighton defensively are just like they could do anything. Like you have no idea. And they rotate a lot. So they're not
yeah.
afraid to switch up the team. And sometimes there's when the players aren't used to playing with each other, you don't have like that same back four every week or something. The goalkeeper changes. Like it is a bit chaotic, surely, like just being there in that
Yeah,
environment.
but I don't think that's narrative. I think there are 2 ways. If you're backing Holland, you're backing the tactics, the tactical matchup in this one, because of the way Brighton want to play, right? And with the way we know Manchester City play. So Brighton are going to want to build out of the back, and Manchester City they're just masters at plugging those spaces when you're trying to build out of the back. Sometimes like a team like Arsenal can sometimes do it, but a team like Brighton will make mistakes, right? So yeah, I mean,
And
I'm
Handsome
still
Jack is back as well.
Handsome Jack is back.
Yeah, he's been pretty pivotal for them. Let's see how that goes. That line, I do feel that obviously with De Bruyne missing, that's huge. And then Rodri's just finished his ban, so we must not forget this loss streak everyone's talking about in the chat. Like you're saying, no Gundogan, Ponna. Gundogan's not been here all season. Like we don't need to still talk
Yeah.
about him. Like we now have 8 weeks data. Let's just go into this season. But Rodri, the 3 games he wasn't there, that was the 3 losses. Knocked out the
Yeah.
cup and lost 2 Prem games in a row for the first time since like Pepper Ryan or something. So it's like, yeah, I think that's just like maybe people don't realize that like as amazing as Haaland is, like Rodri is probably like the most pivotal player to this Man City team. Like he
Yeah.
is phenomenal. So yeah, so I think this just for me shows how much of Rodri they've been missing, and I reckon with him back, like it's going to be golden for them. We're going to forget that we were having these discussions about their blip in the road. I don't fall for this. Man City are fine. They always get by. The treble team, the best team in the world. Don't make you believe that they're underdogs. That's how they get you. They make you believe your team can do it, and then
That's
they
what the
suddenly
stats are
kind of
trying to
someone
do to you
shows
right
up.
now.
Yeah,
Make you believe that they're underdogs.
but they're not. They're not. They're going to like. For me, there isn't a bad game for Man City. I'll be real with you. Like, bar that
No.
one game against Arsenal where I wildcarded 2 City players out, Foden and Alvarez. Bar that game, I've had triple attack most of the season. Right, like I'm a
Mhm.
big backer of this team's attack. Defensively, I'm okay not going there, despite the fact they have a low XG conceded. they have still seemed to concede a goal. Maybe that changes with Rodri. So yeah, and Stones is back as well, as Val says, and Stones has literally not played all season too. So there are some great players coming back into the team, and come to winter, KDB will be back. They'll be raring to go. Like they're fine. They're never an underdog for me. So yeah, let's we'll come back to Man City, I'm sure, again when we get to the captaincy, because like Liverpool, I'm sure them and Spurs, all three will feature quite a lot. They might even dominate the top 10. But yeah, let's go to the next one, I think, and then we can come back talking about City. So Newcastle versus Paris, a nice one. What are your thoughts on this? It seems to favour Newcastle, both the NetxG and the FDR for the podcast listeners. But yeah, why don't you take it away from a matchup point of view?
Yeah, I mean, obviously strong data for Newcastle at home, 1.62 NetxG, but it does like a goal here for Palace. I don't, at least NetxG does. The FDR doesn't agree with a negative 1.5 for Palace, whereas Newcastle has a 3.9. I kind of, I don't know if Eza's still hurt, right? He's still out.
I think so, yeah.
And Schlupa's out as well, I think. But I think for Palace, it's going to depend on the kind of Edouard Mateta connection. If Mateta can get healthy enough and they can start connecting, then there could be a goal in here for Palace. But I don't think anybody's looking at Palace attackers right now, just given the state of them and no Eza. So in terms of Newcastle, yeah, I mean, the defenders are still strong picks. Their defensive data is still very strong. So that, start them comfortably. They said, I don't know what the status of Botman is at this stage. I have him. I'll be starting him. Someone will, like, if he can't start, I guess someone will be subbed in. But definitely follow up on his health. And for Newcastle, the return of Anthony Gordon, I think, will be really big, and that's the side that I like. I think, whenever we talk about Palace, I talk about like the weak link at the back is Joel Ward, and I think Anthony Gordon's speed going up against Joel Ward is just like such a tasty matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins a pen. So if Callum Wilson is on the field, he could get a pen. And obviously Trippier. You have to back Trippier almost every game week now, with a potential haul. The right side, I guess, lights up in the zonals a little bit more than the left, 3.8 compared to 3.5, but I think that difference is mostly negligible. I prefer the tactical matchup to that statistical matchup, the tactical matchup on the left to that statistical one on the right. Look at the headed matchup, 4.3.
4 wow. I think the problem with Newcastle for me is I think most people are in there with like double defense or one defender. I've got Gordon obviously as a fifth midfielder, so I'm looking forward to playing him after having to bench him last week for the suspension. This Wilson Isaac thing, I feel like if one of them was out for a sustained period of time, it almost feels like it would be a no-brainer to have the one that isn't out injured. If you knew it was going to be at least for like a number of game weeks, I don't think I'd even care so much about the fixture difficulties. I would just invest in them because what we were saying about good players from good teams. And I think we all thought they'd really struggle this season. But actually, they got a Champions League group of death and they've looked pretty good. They've managed to get through just fine. Anyone who does what they did to PSG, you got to take them seriously, is my opinion. So, yeah. On that note, William asked how serious is Isaac's injury, for example. So that's not something I know so much about. I am trying to look on Premier Injuries. They have a live injury table. Do you know much about his injury?
I don't know much about it, but I have the Premier Injuries table up. It says Isak signaled to come off. Callum Wilson couldn't have started the game, and he probably couldn't have played longer than he did in the end. I really only wanted to use him in emergency. It says currently being assessed 50%. It's a knee injury for Isak. So,
and the potential return date is the 21st of October, which is obviously this weekend's game. So he's a late test for this game. Obviously, so yeah, he's not out for a sustained period of time. On that note, Podden says Isaac has delivered 43 points in FPL. So are we hurting ourselves by not going there because we know that there is the two of them sharing that spot? Because he's continuing to get the returns.
Well, as long as you owned him when I didn't own him, yes, you've done great with Isak.
Because you had him this season, right?
Yeah, I brought him in for all his blanks, and then Callum Wilson started playing, and I sold Isak, and then he sucks came playing again, and he got a bunch of returns. So I think
That's
Isak
painful.
is the new Callum Wilson for me.
He's your new troll. He's actually taken
He's
over
the
Callum
troll.
Wilson for you. Now you don't mind Callum.
Callum is Mariners troll, and Isak is my troll. Joe
Maybe
Ellington
Gordon
can
will
be your
turn
troll.
out to be mine. Maybe Gordon
Gordon
into
will be.
Callum.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be the only weeks he doesn't score this season are the weeks I own him. But yeah, let's go Black Screen. Good to see you live, mate. Just in terms of cutting the news, I think it's worth saying when we were talking about Liverpool earlier, I haven't verified the accuracy of this, but I saw a notification when we were live that Robertson's out for 10 weeks. So if I get that verified, I will be very interested in turning, because I got two 3.9 million defenders. I'll be very interested in turning one of them into a 4.4 million Simicast if we're saying 10 weeks. Like I will be there.
He becomes a no-brainer.
Yeah. Like I don't even care if they keep 0 clean sheets for the whole 10 weeks.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't
Get
matter.
me one cheeky assist in that time. I've got two 3.9 millions on the bench anyway. Like if he gets one return, I will bank on the profit rise from the price increase.
Totally.
People will be there for that. So let's just Crystal Palace. I think Elise is someone else who's been quite obviously exciting and missed this season. So he sounds like he should be coming back as well. And he is a late test, not for this match. I think this will come too soon, perhaps. But by the week after, you'd expect by the 27th of October, hopefully for game week 10 onwards, he might be back and fit. So I know Palace are really missing these players at the moment. But yeah, let's keep going. Let's go to Nottingham Forest versus Luton, Battle of the Giants. I guess there's some Taiwo owners still out there. So you'd be happy to know that the NetxG is 1.76 for Nottingham Forest, 0.88 for Luton. Oh, damn, he got injured as well. He got subbed off injured at half time, right?
You know who's going to start?
Oh, no, is it Chris Wood?
Bakar's favorite.
Maybe this is the week. Do you get Chris Wood versus Luton and get a 0.1% haul before wildcarding in game week 10? You're giving me ideas here. Shame I already wildcarded. So I'm looking at Taiwo. Yeah, Taiwo is potential return 5th of November. Groin injury out for a month probably. So damn, that is painful. Obviously 2 weeks of that month will have gone by hopefully in the international break. But that is unfortunate because Taiwo was someone else who I think people who didn't wildcard, they held on to him through the tougher fixtures. Obviously he had I think the game against City as well, right? So they held on to him with this Luton game in mind. Similar to what I was saying about Mobuemo with the Burnley home game in mind. Like sometimes you want to have these assets for that one last hurrah before you sell. And this kind of feels like it could have been one of them for Taiwo owners. So RIP.
So, but I'll give you a Taiwo replacement who I love this week. One of my favorite picks for this week is Morgan Gibbs-White.
You think this could be a big week for him?
I think he hauls this week. I really do. And it's a couple things. It's one, Luton have a vulnerability to they play so deep sometimes. If you look at the average position map, that's the if you look at the first orange one, the one on the left, see the gap between the 4 diagonal defenders and the front players
and the entire left side of the pitch. Yeah.
And Morgan Gibbs-White has experience as a 10, but has been playing on that right side. So that's where Morgan Gibbs-White is going to be, in that right side where there are no players and coming into the middle where Luton are vulnerable to begin with. So I really think, yes. And he'll have time on the ball and he'll have space to penetrate. So I really think if I were, say, wildcarding in game week 10,
he's the 1 week punt.
Morgan Gibbs-White would be an enabler for me to get somewhere else or something like that. Morgan Gibbs-White would definitely be a player I bring in as a punt for this game week.
I like that, Sharp. I have him in every single draft team, official FPL, Fantrax FPL. Like he's someone I absolutely love because he gets so many points, Gabe. Obviously, if you remove goals and assists, he can get a 20, 30-point week just from what he does on the ball and the interceptions and everything. Just being involved in play. He is there. I hope they don't suffer too much with Taiwo out, but it should still be quite a nice game for them. When I saw that Tottenham Luton game, I couldn't believe it wasn't like 4 or 5-0 in the first 20 minutes. They were just like under shock. Like they were constantly bombarding forward Spurs and just getting in so easily and lining up for shots. And I honestly couldn't believe it. Like Richarlison had 2 goals, right? He could have had a brace before like 10 minutes in. like my thoughts on that just while I'm here is I honestly still blame my son captaincy blank on Richarlison, because I feel had he scored those 2 goals or not missed both of those kind of clear-cut goals and got it on target at least or something, I don't think Basuma would have felt that pressure to jump in like that and just like dive and get himself sent off. Like, why are you
That's
diving?
so
Like,
crazy.
diving on a yellow card in the 45th minute, like 0-0, like
Against
1-0, whatever.
Luton.
Like,
Come on. So
yeah, like,
nuts.
yeah, so that's what we saw. I blame Richarlison for that, as dumb as what Basuma did is, because I'm like, why didn't Richarlison just put it away so that Basuma wouldn't have felt the need or pressure to do something so stupid? So that's some
Yeah.
blank I blame on him. And apologies to anyone who brought him in and punted on him and he got subbed at halftime, obviously. So that's
Well,
quite painful.
speaking of bringing players in, our first time viewer, long time listener, FPL Nyonto brought Gibbs White in last week. Says looking forward to the haul. One of my favorite players in the league.
I love
I'll
Gibbs
back you
White
in that. That's
so
great.
much.
He's great.
I think
He's
I
great.
think he was the player of the tournament at the under-21 Euros, which England won with him. So at the helm. So yeah, I really love this guy. And Forest are a team I do enjoy watching when they're doing well. I think it's been
And
good
they're
for
at
them.
home. Forest love to be at home. Look at those numbers: 1.76 net XG for Forest. They're like
That
these
is
are like
quite, yeah, that's
almost,
good.
and backed up by the FDR as well at 2.5. So 11 shots in the box predicted for Forest.
Coco says I've switched from my target Luton strategy after the heartache, I guess, of last week from Spurs to now target Sheffield United. We've got a new team to target. All right, then. Cool. Let's go to the next
Oh
game.
no, that means he's gonna. Oh, I'm not talking about Manchester United, man.
Oh, is that who's next? Oh, it's Man United
That's
versus
who they.
Sheffield.
Yeah. Oh
Oh
my God,
no.
Combe.
Maybe you could do a 1 week punt on them. But before that match is obviously Chelsea versus Arsenal at Stamford Bridge. This is a game that I don't think Arsenal have lost in a few years away at home, actually. I think it goes all the way back to just when Lampard got sacked. I don't think Chelsea have won at home against Arsenal since before then. So yeah, that's a long time ago. Obviously, Arsenal had got 3 points out of 30 in a run of 10 games. Everyone thought Arteta was going to get sacked going into Christmas. And then he came and played Lampard, played Smith Rowe for the first time. And through injuries, was forced to drop the likes of Willian and all these guys. And all the youngsters suddenly started, and the Hayland Revolution began that week. Since then, we're 3-4 Chelsea managers later. Arsenal haven't yet lost there. They've kept multiple clean sheets. So maybe I'm just too excited after beating City, but I have no worries about this game. I am like genuinely excited for this. Now, the data probably tends to side with me on the NetxG, but not so much on the FDR. So the NetxG for Arsenal is 1.24, 0.69 for Chelsea. However, on the FDR, Arsenal's attack is only 0.3 to Chelsea's attack, which is 1. So there's definitely a discrepancy there. So I'd love to unpack it tactically with you. What you reckon about the situation there? Reece James looks like he's in training. They don't know if he'll be back for this game. So there's obviously that level. I think Gusto's back from suspension.
We can clip that and just play it, like just press play every single game week for the rest of the season. Reece James is in training. We don't know if he'll be back. Reece James is in training. We don't know if he'll be back.
I think he had a setback in training, but I don't know. I know he also had a suspension that he served while injured or something along those lines.
Yeah, he did.
So so that went well for him. But obviously, Black Screen asked about Sterling here as well. So I think this one will answer while we're here, just talking about Chelsea versus Arsenal. But otherwise, overall, I've got another question for K7. We will answer that.
I think he's trolling you, Nima. I think he's just trolling you.
No, but I'm happy to answer that question. I don't know about the captaining him, but
I don't think it's a real question.
No, but it's worth it. No, he knows. He loves me. We love each other. We've been, to be fair, since I said what I said to you, bro. Saka has 5 goals and 5 assists so it's been going well. And I've heard that his underlying numbers this season are about 0.7 xG, up from last season's underlying numbers, which I know we discussed weren't sustainable when me and Black Screen spoke. And I said, but what if as a young player, his underlying numbers get better? Will it then be sustainable? So, 5 goals, 5 assists now. No time before he's on double-digit goals and assists again this season, just like he was the only player last season to get that. So, yeah, I back him. I love him. And my plan is to get him back into my team as soon as game week 10. Obviously, I sold him on the wild card. I was gutted to see him out for the Man City game. But I still back what I said. Pre-season Black Screen, I still feel Saka is the Arsenal pick to own, and then you build around him if you want others.
100%. Yeah,
That's
I
that's
agree.
just my view. I just
So
watching him and stuff, like I just think he's the real deal. He's only going to get better. But yeah,
yeah,
on
I
this
totally
patch, let's
agree.
go to Sterling and generally Chelsea. Obviously, I think defensively their assets have been pretty good this season. I know the fixtures really take a sharp turn at this stage. So for me, I'm just not interested. But I knew people who
Mhm.
wildcarded last week and had Levi Colwill at like 4.5 million because he's just solid and their defense has been pretty solid, as I mentioned.
Yeah, it has, and it shows up there in the NetxG. You know, the FDR. I can't really explain the FDR. Like it looks like it's like there's flipped. Like the Chelsea stats belong to Arsenal, the Arsenal but to Chelsea. The only and maybe that's the case. The only thing that would throw me off that is the chance that the right zonal for Arsenal should be higher than the rest. So that's what tells me that the data is probably right.
Because you
But
know
I'll
it's
tell you,
right.
like, yeah, exactly. It's on the right side. But so in Arsenal in away matches, right? I mean, here's their away kind of some expected data for Arsenal. They've only played 3 fixtures away this season, so small-ish sample size. But in those 3 fixtures, they've only generated 4.1 xg.
Sounds
So
about right. Yeah,
about
they've
one and a
completely
quarter
changed.
x.
Like
Yeah,
one
one
a
and a quarter
game, like
xg per game.
it's not much.
Um,
You're feeding off scraps there. Yeah.
Yeah, and Chelsea have conceded just under 4 in their for under 4 xg in their 4 home matches.
Home games,
So we're
right? Yeah.
talking that's why the xg matchup is right around 1 for Arsenal, but like similarly for Chelsea, Chelsea have generated 6.3 xg.
Yeah,
Oh
they
no,
have. They've been.
that's
Well, I think they've
but they can't finish. So there's a flip thing, right?
yeah. So
So
they've won
Arsenal,
every game on XG, even the ones they didn't win, and they're like
right.
the only team who've done that or something. One of the only teams.
So the difference is in the shooting. Arsenal from 4.1 xg non-penalty created, right? They've generated 6.63 post shot xg and 6 goals.
So
So
once they
Arsenal
actually
is
shot
doing,
the post shot XG is like they are expected to score more, like with the who's
yes,
shooting
with
and
the way
the
they're finishing, and
positioning and the way they're shooting,
yeah,
like the choice of shot. Because XG, I think I didn't realize this till I met you that XG is a pre-shot number, so the
it's a
shot has nothing
pre-shot
to
number,
do.
but there has to be a shot. If there's no shot, there's no
Then there
xg,
won't
right?
be an XG. Yeah, so that's why you end up with the Haaland 0.0 XG. They could just fucking say he had no shots.
Yeah, yeah,
But why
exactly.
say that? Like, why? Like, I love data. I love
Yeah.
tacticos talking on Twitter. But why alienate fucking people by saying 0.0 XG? Does it just illustrate the zero shots more aggressively? I don't know. But sometimes I have
It is
qualms with
alienating.
the way people present stuff. Yeah.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So that's in that sense when you dig into the data, and Chelsea have been decent at home, right? Hold on, I'll bring up their expected data at home here. And Chelsea have conceded 3.54 xg in 4 home games. So Chelsea have been tight, and if you look at the average position maps as well, the first one there on the left, I mean that's almost like a classic 4-3-3 formation. Like this is like
Mm.
textbook. You have your 4 in the shape of a U. You have your kind of like skewed triangle of the 3 center mids, and you have the 3 up top. So like tactically they're disciplined. The problem with Chelsea, and from an attacking perspective, even though that they are tactically disciplined, is that they are a team of individuals. They don't
Mm.
connect well. They set up well, and which is why they have a decent defense, but they don't connect well, and then that's why their attack often falters. And I would side with NetxG here. A clean sheet for Arsenal would not surprise me.
Yeah, so obviously kudos to those who kept their Arsenal defenders last week and started them. Saliba was someone I sold on the wild card. So yeah, that would be interesting to see. But yeah, I think for me, like I would, if I had a Chelsea defender like a Colwill right now, I reckon I would hold on to them. I just don't see enough upside moving from like a defender of that price point to another similar one, unless, for example, you decide you got the Trippier decision wrong and you're going to do a quick bit of surgery and downgrade elsewhere and fund an upgrade because Chelsea's fixtures turn short. But if you can fund having Colwill as like a fourth defender in a 3-man back line and he's there as a sub, and some weeks you play him if you like that matchup specifically, then over this current spell forward, I think he's the kind of season keeper type of defender.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would honestly just happily have him as at that price for the whole season, and just play in the weeks I like the game and make sure I have enough defenders for the weeks I don't. That would be my plan with him. Jackson obviously got his much awaited goal. They absolutely battered Burnley, but that was, it's just the floodgates opened, right? So I don't think it's going to be the same kind of game here. Yes, they're on an upward trajectory, but I do think this will be more difficult for them personally. I'm hoping for a win. I would not be shocked with a draw. That's just something I'll put out there. I always find the games back after international break and stuff, they're not the nicest affairs. Things don't always seem so, like, they don't click so well. They're just all our players nowadays. It's a good problem to have. I remember the era when none of our players were going on international breaks. They were all shit. So thank God they're actually being called up by their teams these days, and they are going and doing stuff. But yeah, it adds its own kind of dramas when you get to this point. And yeah, I think ultimately we go to the next game, because I'm sure we can talk about some of these assets further on in the Q&A as well. But before we go to the next one, just a quick shout out, 1 hour in now. First time we're plugging for likes. So if you've enjoyed the episode, if we made you laugh, if you found it entertaining, please do hit that like button. It means a lot to us. And as I mentioned, your support, we would not be here without it. So thank you all for tuning in. If you're on podcasts, any kind of review on the podcast directory of your choice would be much appreciated. And as if by magic, we get to Sheffield, the team that is now being targeted instead of Luton. So Sheffield at home, it says, to Man United. Okay, so at least there's that one saving grace that it's not at Old Trafford. However, we saw what happened at Old Trafford last week. So, they've been having some tough times wherever they play this season. And you would think that even now that they've got Højlund in and Mount is back, like maybe things will start to get better. Rashford scored for England yesterday. Like hopefully you see more cohesion in that squad overall. But yeah, they have really been struggling, I would say. I think that's safe to say. And every week we've held on to their assets because that next fixture was like the good fixture we were waiting for, right? And like this is another one of those. Their fixtures actually get even better from now. It's like the run is great. But I moved off of them on the wild card. I don't know if I intend on going back to Rashford anytime soon. What are your thoughts for those who do have the assets? It's surely it's a must keep this week. And then what are your thoughts long term? If you're then like wildcarding game week 10, have United shown enough despite the recent kind of hopefully returns and resurgence? Or I know you've been quite anti Ten Hag in terms of his tactics this season. When I watched the review show, you know, if anyone's not seen the timestamps for Man United, go back and watch for sure. I just apologize to all our United haulers who tune in. Even I'm not so biased against Man United.
Apologies in advance.
Yeah, I have to be nice about them just to counteract that. I finally met someone who just is calling what you're seeing, which is that they've not been great, I think is the bottom line. But yeah, ultimately, surely it's an amazing fixture. Like the NetxG is 2.09 for Man United. The FDR for their attack is 4.2. Sheffield have but
even in an amazing fixture, I think you can probably find somebody better to start than Archer.
No, not starting Archer. I just mean for United. But for me, before the show, I said about captaining him. Yeah, that was the joke. Did you see that?
No, yeah.
I said I was going to captain Archer this week as a joke that I'm targeting United for the viewers. So yeah, so even I have my biases too.
But no, my bias comes from bad football, and we've seen that from Spurs from many seasons. I get pissed off when they win despite bad football. But I think owning United assets right now is just, I mean, it's just masochism. And then for Combe, when Combe comes in, Rashford, last chance to win this game week. Then he's out for Saka and Doucouré out for Matoma. I mean, honestly, like I would sell Bruno for Morgan Gibbs-White this week. I don't know, as
that last punt before the wild card or something.
Yeah, I mean, United have not shown anything, and I'm not buying.
Which United? Which United? Sheffield United or Manchester United?
Exactly.
I guess the saying probably accounts to both.
Yeah, like I don't know. Do you start Archer or do you start Højlund? I don't know. Maybe Archer.
No, no. I think jokes aside,
No,
Hoyland is actually someone who I really have liked what I've seen. So I think for me, if I was going to get a Man United attacker, I think I actually prefer him and his price point over like Bruno and Rashford as it stands. I only ever had Rashford for the first weeks, for the first 7 weeks or so. I know there was people who had both Bruno and Rashford. There was a bit of a swing, wasn't there? Like at first, it
mm,
was like Bruno's the better
mhm.
one. He looked like he was more involved. Rashford then suddenly looked like the games that were coming up, the matchup suited him more. But then actually, we then thought Bruno looked better. So it's been difficult, and kind of having both gave you avenues to points from both, and that's been tough. Obviously, Anthony as well, Podner just mentioned, so he's back as well, was on the bench last game. So he's being put back in. Mount is back, as I mentioned, Hoyland's finally ready. Bit by bit, the team is getting more solid. Obviously, there's still some defensive injuries, so you got to wonder like how far away maybe Luke Shaw is. I don't know how far he is. But yeah, I'm quite excited about his team. I think last season they were the third best team in the Prem, so I was expecting them to kind of really kick on. I know Onana's had a bit of an unfortunate start to his career. So I think obviously it's funny to laugh now while they've got their misfortunes, but it's the similar things I was saying about Man City earlier in the episode. Like I know they'll come good, they'll fix themselves up, they'll come back in, they'll go for it. Like
I don't
they,
know.
they will get
I
by.
don't agree. I don't agree. I
No?
think people, yeah, when Chelsea finished 10th or whatever, people were saying the same thing about Chelsea at the beginning. They're Chelsea. They'll come good. It's just a name. Those are just words on a screen. Those are just letters. MANC Manchester. Who cares, man? That like they suck. They've shown absolutely nothing. The little bit that they've gotten this season, they've been lucky to get it, like against Wolves and stuff. So
Yeah, I think
I think
that's fair.
Manchester
Like
they have the quality for sure. They have the quality of player on the team. The manager fit with this team is yet to be determined, but they've shown nothing this season. So if
this
you've
season,
shown
though, this
nothing,
season.
zero, yeah, this season, but we're 8 game weeks in. So what
Yeah, no, no, I
we're
know.
gonna remember like our go back to
Like
our
their
memories and
cup, no, their
okay,
cup and their
but
trophy, and
Ferguson used to be their manager, so I'm sure they'll do good this season. Fuck
no,
off.
I'm not one of those who believes in like this guy's never scored in game week 2 or this guy scores 9 goals against this opponent 10 years ago. Like I'm not one for those metrics in decision making for sure. So I won't be going back as far as Ferguson last season to an extent. The reason I bring up last season, obviously, I think Podner is good to add the nuance to it. Obviously, there have been a lot of injury issues at Man United. I think there's 15 first team players out at the moment, is the count they've recently given. It's an incredible number.
But most of them
That's a separate
are
issue.
defenders, man. But not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they still have Bruno, they still have Rashford, they still have Casemiro, they still have Mason Mount was injured for a little while, but like they still have their attacking players and they can't attack because they are tactically inept.
so I
And the
think that will
players
change.
are
Though.
in
I
poor
think that will
form.
change. I think with Hoyland, Anthony back, and Mount there, I think things will change. I'm pretty confident, but maybe I'll be proved wrong in the next review show if this
For
game goes really badly.
Well, I mean, and maybe you could still be right, right? But well, all I'm saying is wait for that to happen
Yeah.
before
Like don't like I don't yeah, I don't want the
invest.
players to like see it. So I get what you're saying. So it's not you're not being harsh.
Yeah,
You're just saying from an FPL point of view. Like for me, it's the
right.
same, right? Like I just moved Rashford on the wild card, and I'm like, yeah, I will come back here, and maybe it's Hoyland, maybe it's not Rashford or Bruno, and Regulion is a really interesting option I'm looking at for a few game weeks when the fixtures turn. He should be back from his I think suspension it was maybe, or I don't know if it was an injury or suspension, but I'm pretty sure he's
Hmm.
back. So he's another exciting opportunity. He's quite affordable, similar to the Cinecast price range. So I will dip my toes back in, but I want to actually see. And this game
See
could
it
be the
first.
perfect, premiere or unveiling of United kickstarting the season
I
and going like pulling them apart. Because this is a
see.
team you want to face.
I wouldn't even go there. How many game weeks have we been saying that about United?
Yeah,
We
but
have to
this
stop
game,
saying that. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
I'm just proving the point. Yeah, yeah, I'm just proving the point. It's almost like
Yeah.
satire at this stage. I don't even mean to, but it just kind of writes itself. So I think we'll come back to these guys, but as we say, I think no one's really on these assets at this stage. Archer's fine as a sub. I started him last week to no joy, so I don't think I'll be going there again anytime soon. So Aston Villa versus West Ham. This is very exciting from an FPL point of view because both teams have
Mm.
unbelievable fixtures going on from game week 10. I think a lot of people have piled straight in. We've got kind of cash owners. We've got DRB owners, Watkins owners. On the West Ham side, we've got Bowen, Ward-Prowse, a lot of Areola owners. I think this week I'll be benching him for Turner, to be honest. But going forwards, it will be Areola's spot, and there will be no rotation. So, yeah, I think this game I'm really excited to see. It seems to edge out in Aston Villa's favour for both metrics for the podcast listeners. So 2.53 NetxG for Villa, 1.13 for West Ham. The attack for Aston Villa is 4.2, and the attack for West Ham is 0.5. So all the metrics seem to favour Aston Villa at the moment. It's obviously based on their home data for this season, and it's based on West Ham's away data from this season. So I think you said earlier on, like, it is quite small for some teams. Like, it's 3 home games or 4 away games. So it's still not quite there, but we do prefer to do home defense versus away attack and things, rather than just lumping all the data together. So it's nice to try and capture those nuances. But I think as the game weeks go on, this data will feel a bit more sufficient, or kind of, I guess, statistically significant with more of it. So I'm still just conscious not to read too much into it, because I see no reason why West Ham couldn't win in this game, right? Like, I know the data seems to kind of call them as underdogs, but I don't particularly see why. Like, I think West Ham could easily win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised that the metrics are, so like unanimous in favoring Villa so much more. Like, I thought it would be closer. I would probably favor Villa if I had, Villa, especially at home. But yeah, I'm surprised it's so much. The Villa with the 2.5 compared to 1.1 for West Ham for NetxG it's so much, and a lot of it I think is, well, some of it is baked into the zonals, but a lot of it is baked into like what so Villa at home, their expected data at home is quite strong. So they're in 3 home fixtures, they have a 6.2 xg, so over 2 xg. It's like 2.07 xg per home fixture, which is really nice. But on top of that, they have from that, sorry, there we go, 6.21. But they've generated 8.77 post shot xg from that 6.21. And then from that 8.77 post shot xg, they've scored 13 goals. So they're overperforming their xg based on the shots that they take, and they're overperforming the goals that they score based on the post shot xg that they get from their shots. And that combination has just really led to big production for Villa. Whether that's sustainable or not is, I think, is a fair question, though. And from a Villa perspective, is it going to be Diaby? Is Diaby going to come back into kind of FPL prominence, or has it just shifted back to the talisman, the historical talisman in Watkins? I don't know. What do you think on that, on those two? And then I want to talk about West Ham and their defense and stuff for a second. There's a couple of
that'd be good to discuss as well. Yeah, so I think I've got Watkins at the moment on the wild card, and his price risen like mad. I think we all missed the big haul. I think he's steady and consistent. I'm happy to own him for the time being, but overall, I'm not convinced going with him and like instead of like an Alvarez, and then like not going Trippier. I'm not sure I'm so happy with that decision I made. I really wanted the RB. He was injured out. Ultimately, I also panicked because I have 2 assets in this game, I think, or 3 assets in this game. I panicked because I could have had Ward-Prowse and DRB as my kind of 5-man midfield. But because I didn't know about DRB's fitness, I really wanted Bowen over Ward-Prowse. So I went for Bowen. And then that meant I had to go down a bracket from the DRB pool by 1 million. So I went down to the Gordon, obviously, because I didn't want Neto. So it's all a bit difficult because now I've got Bowen and Gordon, but I don't have the RB anymore. And Watkins I wanted the RB for weeks, but then I thought, why not just triple up? The fixtures are great. Just triple up for a bit. Now I don't even have the RB, and I can't get to him from Gordon easily. Bowen's there instead of JWP. So it's all like, I really need Bowen to do well is what I'm getting at, because he's the reason now that I don't have the RB. And
I think Bowen is a better long-term pick, though,
than Ward-Prowse. Or then DRB. Okay, yeah. Ward-Prowse, I felt like he was nice to hold steady, but I thought Bowen might just get me like a crazy haul while I own him. I was just hoping I caught the the right tailwind, and I'm just there for those few game weeks where he does super well. Whereas if I wanted that position long term, maybe I would have gone Ward-Prowse and DRB. But overall, I think those who've had Watkins from game week 1, like Cone, yeah, I had him in like game week 1 in other formats because he just feels like what I was saying about Levi Colwill earlier. Like I'm just happy to own him and just play him every week at that price. He's starting to go up as well. He always generally returning. I know he's off penalties, which isn't great, but you know, he's still getting the points. I just think that with my strategy of play, he's like that ultimate shield pick. Like with his ownership now, like there's no chance with those fixtures for Villa, I'm not gonna have him. Like it's just not gonna happen. But some people will play differently, right? Like I know people who have Hoyland instead of him, and that's quite exciting. Like if you're in that situation and you can have a Hoyland or someone just different to what everyone else has, it's just a bit more exciting in the game, I think. So yeah, I wouldn't say that it's wrong to go in that direction and avoid him because I think maybe you can save some money on him and actually with that money upgrade another position and kind of keep up with what he might get with a better second player than you have with him in your team. So there's some thought to be done there. I'm not convinced what I'll do with him, but when I wildcarded, he was rising like 3 times in that 1 week. It just felt like a no-brainer. But yeah, this matchup specifically, what I'm kind of looking at, what I think will happen is I'm thinking it's going to be a draw. And I would go so far as to say I think maybe a 2-2. I would not be surprised to see something like that. So I know the data isn't quite pushing West Ham so much, but I'm backing them quite favorably.
But the shots data is you could see like look at the shots data 29%. It's like the close to the highest percentage for both of them. Like that 2-2, 2-1 is quite likely. So if you're just looking at the shots data, I agree with you. And the other thing is how will Mohamed Kudus scored a really nice goal for West Ham. What's he gonna add to like to West Ham's attack, and how is he going to change that effectiveness? We look at, it's not showing up there, but I like potentially Paqueta if he's playing on the left. I'm not sure if it'll be Kudus or Paqueta who will play on the left. But I kind of like that left side up against like in behind Cash. If they send Cash forward, then I think an opportunity is opened up on the left-hand side. But what David Moyes could do is hold Cash back in this one to deal with Watkins, because Watkins will be floating between that right center back and the right back. So he could hold Cash back to help deal with Watkins. And in that case, that opens things up for Diaby being isolated against Pau Torres. So it's a really fascinating tactical matchup, I think, for both sides. And I find it really difficult to predict because it just depends on how each manager is going to react to the other one.
Maybe it's the.
But I do like goals. I like goals for both of them.
Yeah, I was saying maybe it's the type of game where the subs are what wins the game. That kind of unlocking of each other's tactics and trying to undo the weaknesses that they see in the first part pre-subs, and it should be quite a nice tactical game. What Moyes is showing bit more tactical nous these days than I predicted from him. But Emery's been doing great as well, obviously. So hopefully it's a nice matchup there. But yeah, I think we've got one more match.
Well, there was a question about Sofal.
Oh, let's talk about the defenders. Sorry, yeah, let's talk about West Ham defense because obviously a lot of people have Areola, but I did consider it. I saw a few people going Aguard as like a 4.5 million defender. I definitely prefer Sufal, as Black Screen suggesting. So that is someone I really like the look of. But yeah, what are your thoughts on their defense in general? Is it worth doubling up? Like I guess maybe some people don't even have Areola, but maybe you just want Sufal. Like I don't think there's. Yeah, what do you think about their defense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the West Ham defenders. I would probably go for like a set piece target like Zuma, if I were going there. I also want to see what the introduction of Mohamed Kudus does to the team, and whether that because Emerson is not a great defender, but he does like to get forward, and David Moyes sometimes gives him that freedom to get forward. But with these emerging assets of Tsimikas, with Robertson out for 10 weeks, right? And who's the 4.4 that we were talking about? I'm blanking now.
Well, Tsimikas and the other one.
Simicast was one. Simicast is 4.4.
Simicast is one of them. Yeah, he's Regulion. Regulon.
Well, I wouldn't go Manchester United defense, but yeah, like, but for example, you know, if you're looking at Simicast or Sofal, I'd probably go Simicast, right? So I just think there are other similar options.
I think with that 10 weeks out news, if that 10 weeks out news is relevant and true,
yeah,
then obviously that's suddenly good. I love what TS Editor is saying. Fascinating tactical match equals 0-0. Yeah. So I'm looking at like 0-0, 70th minute. Moyes makes a sub, bang, that creates a goal. Unai Emery makes a sub, bang, it's 1-1. Game ends. Tactical draw, boring for 80 minutes of the game. Maybe
it's like Leon Bailey and like and someone else score. But here I have a question for you in terms of goalkeepers. David Raya or Areola?
I don't think I could spend the money on Raya when I know Gabriel's there. And like,
no, just which one would you start?
Start if I had both. Okay, in that scenario, yeah. Oh, they're both away. I'd start Raya.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That's who I'm starting. Those are my two goalkeepers. That's who I'm starting.
Yeah, because I was thinking if I was going to buy now, like I would be looking at Gabriel and Areola, and I would just skip like the kind of West Ham defender plus the West Ham goalkeeper.
Right.
Like I don't know. Like I just kind of I think I prefer that to Raya plus Aguad, because again with Raya, I know he's like made it his shirt, but you just can't take these risks. Like my next wildcard might not be till March or April. I can't be getting a goalkeeper and like he just randomly misses games. I want to keep an eye on that situation.
Why? What's the possible scenario where that happens?
So here's the first one. He can't play against Brentford because he's on loan.
Oh, he's on loan.
So that's already one game coming up.
No, he's not on loan. You guys bought him for like 30 million. No way.
No,
really?
We paid 3 million for loan, and then we can activate it to buy next year.
That's so stupid that rule in the Premier League.
But because he's on loan, he can't play against us. I don't think.
So dumb.
You know what's funny? Wow. We asked for Brentford's permission if he could play in the cup. I think it was the Carabao Cup, and they gave permission for him to play. But we played Ramsdale, and by then Raya was the Premier League goalkeeper. I think last year Newcastle asked United for permission for their goalkeeper to play, who was on loan at Newcastle, and Man United didn't give them permission and won that cup final, right? So you can see it has real implications. Like all the way to a final, Newcastle weren't allowed to play their goalkeeper.
So you guys played Brentford on Christmas Day on the 25th.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that game week, 2 days earlier, Areola plays United. So good matchup for Areola.
That's not. I don't know if by then United will still be the whipping boys.
Wait, I don't know either. I'm joking.
I think Claire has got Areola and Raya on Wildcard game week 8.
Let's go, Claire.
He even started Raya versus City in game week 8. Oh my gosh, yeah, that is some maverick stuff, Claire. We love to see that. But yeah, let's go to the last matchup of the week, and then Tottenham versus Fulham on the Monday night. This is going to be exciting. Hopefully, 2.03 NetxG for Spurs, 0.94 for Fulham. The attacking FDR for Spurs is 3.2, and for Fulham it's minus 0.6. Just to clarify, the reason I don't read it out both ways anymore is because whatever the attacking FDR for Spurs is, that's going to be the negative defense for Fulham. So if Spurs is 3.2 attack and you're listening on podcast, is a minus 3.2 for the Fulham defense, and Fulham's minus 0.6 for attack is 0.6 defense for Spurs. So that's why I just don't even read them both ways now, because it's just an inverse, right? It's a mirror. Whatever my attack is what your defense is. So that's just something worth putting out there for future shows. But yeah, this should be a big win by Spurs. I don't see any reason not. Like, you know, Ange's come in. He's been a revelation. I think manager of the month. They got player of the month. Their club's getting all the everythings of the month in back-to-back months. So I don't want to, piss on the parade too much. I'm actually quite impressed by what they've done. And if I was their fan right now, it must be so exciting to have this new brand of football and feel like you can watch it and it's very entertaining. So I do think they're quite an exciting team at the moment. I do think they'll be fourth come Christmas, but that's a debate for a different day. As I said, I don't want to piss on their parade. I think they've done a fantastic job, but I'm just still watching. This is an ideal game, London derby. For Fulham, I don't think really stand a chance, in my opinion. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. I would have said the same thing about Luton last game week, though. So
I guess
you
red
never know.
cards
But
change things, though, right? Like
red cards change things.
I'm
Red
not, I'm
cards
not going to
matter.
predict the red card every game. Yeah, I'm not.
No.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna live in fear of a red card ruining my game week twice running.
The player I really like here, I think, is Pedro Porro. He's getting so far forward. He's almost like a fourth attacker, and I have to say Dejan Kulusevski just doesn't. I've never rated him personally, so you could say that I have a bias. But I don't think he's. I think what they need on that side is Porro, and I think he's really showing that. But this one, you see, like in the position match, in the position mat there, Son and Madison, they play quite close together. We keep talking about that Son's playing the 9, Son's playing the 9, but sometimes that 9 is just opening things up for Madison. And I think if we're taking price into consideration, I think Madison is just a superior option to Son from an FPL perspective, because there are more routes to points and he plays more minutes. But for me, this is all about Udogi and Porro, I think.
So the two wing backs. Okay. No, I think that's good to hear as an Udogi owner. I think most people probably have a Spurs defender. I've seen some with triple Spurs midfield. So that's an interesting alternative route to go.
That would have been my free hit. I would have had
for that, right?
Richarlison in my for sure.
Yeah, knowing that he's gonna play and like everyone's out and this is his time, and man, it's tough. Also, Colm obviously says, I am still watching game. Obviously, long-term hauler, Fulham fan, so we will try to be kind about this game. He says the Monday game will be beneficial for any knocks to Son and Romero. Clean sheet for Tottenham Hotspur in Gameweek 9, says Val.
So here's and Pereira. Maybe Pereira can get something. There you go, Com. If Pedro Porro gets yeah, there's some hope. If like Pereira and William can kind of combine on that left-hand side, Porro's not a great defender anyway. I think they could ruin Spurs' clean sheet here.
Yeah, that's fair. I think just to touch on that Son stuff. So he seemed to kind of be having a calf injury that he sustained on international duty, and he gave an interview recently where he said he wasn't sure if he would even be fit to play. He hadn't trained. He told the manager, "Can I play? I don't want to miss this." So he played. I think he got, he's hobbled off at halftime, came on, got a goal and an assist, and then got subbed. So you would think he's fine, because what the news seems to be is that he was carrying like this groin injury this season, and he's just been playing anyway. And that's why I think a lot of the early subs have been coming. So I do think that's another thing to keep an eye on, because when I get to game week 10, Son to Saka is much easier for me and frees up funds. But I left enough in the bank to do Madison to Saka, and part of me is like, I don't know now. Like, I want to keep an eye on this Son injury situation. Like, it feels like it's a week by week thing, and that does worry me slightly. And if you're saying that actually on these networks we're seeing like it's not just Son who's very central, like Madison's there too, then that does kind of make me feel less bought into that narrative that, oh yeah, I'll just keep Son out of the two. Like I want to be more open-minded and wait and watch them this week against Fulham and just have another final view before I make that decision on who's going for Saka, because I do ultimately think one of them will go for Saka for me. So that's just my view. But yeah, and I'm sure again we'll talk more about these guys in a couple of minutes' time, really, when we get to the captaincy metric, I'm sure. So let's kind of go to the summary of the week and then look at the overview of the next 5 and just put some of the content onto the viewers can come back to after the show right before deadline. If you've got dilemmas, if you want to quickly see all the matchups on one page, that would be at the 1 hour, 29 minute timestamp. So it's the Gameweek 9 Matchup Summary, all the FDRs, all the NetxG, Zonals, and all the matchups themselves as well, with headed matchups and shots in the box, shots on target, big chances. So yeah, I will let you give a quick summary.
Yeah, I'll just go through and read the, like, kind of maybe the top three, the highlights here. So in terms of the FDR, top is Liverpool against Everton. Then we have a tie in second with Villa and United. Villa against West Ham and United against Sheffield United. Newcastle is closely, they're at 4.2 and Newcastle closely behind at 3.9. NetxG top two with 2.5 is Villa and Liverpool. So in that sense, there's kind of an agreement between the metrics and the top teams. For this game week, from a statistical perspective, are Villa and Liverpool. NetxG also likes begrudgingly United. I'm ashamed of NetxG right now, and like Spurs, obviously against United at 2.1 and Spurs at 2.0. The best zonals, we're looking at probably Manchester United's left. So that speaks to Combs' Rashford captaincy, insanity. wait, he's still in the chat. Sorry, Combs. Spurs is left. So I don't know who's going to play there on the left for Spurs, to be honest. I mean, Richarlison's coming back from international duty as well. I don't know if Maynard Solomon is healthy or not.
I think he's still out. Yeah,
he's still out. Okay.
I think so.
And then what else we got? Brentford left. Whatever. Central matchups, looking for Manchester United Central 4.7, Villa Central 4.4. That could be Watkins or Diaby. Probably leaning towards Watkins, since that left is also kind of lighting up at 4.1. And then on the right we have Spurs. So Spurs flanks, like we talked about. On the right, we have Nottingham Forest, Morgan Gibbs White, like we talked about. 4.6 for Manchester United. Likes Manchester United across the board because Sheffield United are crap. And yeah, I think that's it. For the rest of it, come take a look.
Yeah, perfect. So on to the next one, just to show everyone. So this is 1 hour 31 and a half. This is the next 5 matchup summary. So I guess if you're wildcarding in Game Week 9, even if you're wildcarding in Game Week 10 to an extent, this gives you a view of which teams are highest rated for the FDR and just generally. So I think the top one at the moment is Liverpool with 16.9. We have Aston Villa with 14.3 in second. We have Newcastle's up there as well with 16.3. So Liverpool 16.9 attacking FDR. Newcastle 16.3, Aston Villa 14.3, Brighton 13.2, Spurs 11.1, Man United 11, Man City 9.4, Everton 9.5, and Arsenal down at 7.2, which is okay. But West Ham 8.5. I'd say those are all quite interesting because they're very different to what I would have thought over the next 5. And I think that's maybe with Game Week 9 in mind. I think actually like Game Week 10 onwards, maybe the likes of West Ham and Arsenal may look better, but yeah, that's just a thought. And Newcastle as well, just the Isaac stuff we were talking about, like whether him or Wilson. Like I am quite pumped to see this, and I do hope Gordon is going to play a big part in these 5 weeks ahead. But yeah, come to this timestamp, guys, if you're looking for the next 5 summary.
And then next week we'll have the next 5 for NetxG as well. That is in the works this week. So if you are planning a Game Week 10 wildcard, which I prefer to the Game Week 9, but obviously do you. If you're planning a Game Week 10, we'll have a lot more data for the planning for the Game Week 10 wildcard next week.
Nice shout out. And then I guess this is another timestamp, the 1 hour 33. So this is next 5 for involvement. So this is like, I know, a bit of a test data that we've been showing for a few weeks now from Mariner, something new for the show as we explore other metrics. So this one really looks at, I guess, it's just looking at the next 5, right? And it's looking at percentage expected involvement. Is that kind of what it's sorted by, I suppose? And Haaland's up there at 0.53, Salah at 0.47, Bruno Fernandes at 0.45. You got Momo still there for 0.43. You got Solanke, who we mentioned as an option earlier. Rashford, Edouard, Bowen, Neto, Madison. It's quite interesting, isn't it? It's very different to nearly all the other kind of data points we've talked about throughout the show.
Yeah, because I mean, when you only look at involvement, when you're only looking at the talisman effect, right? Then you get a bit of a different list, and you get some people like players that are just like fixed, like they're stalwarts. They're always there. Erling Haaland, he's at the top of every list. You know, Salah, also like he's up there. Then you have like, you know, if you have 100% goal involvement and 0 goals, it's still 0, right? Or if you have like 1 goal in 6 games and 100% involvement, it's still just 1 goal. So you need more context, but this adds a nice little lens. And as you're building a wildcard squad, then you weigh the involvement with whatever you think the quality of the team is next to it, and you make your decisions from there. So it's a useful little table for that.
Yeah, no, so exactly. If you're listening on podcast, do come and take a look. I think it's much nicer looking at it visually with the bar charts as well. It's just a quick snap view. So just before the captaincy metric, quick plug for our mini league. So the code is HUP69D if you're listening on podcast. There will be a link to the podcast that you can auto invite into. So on the podcast and YouTube, just hit that mini league link if you want to join the Haulers mini league and compete. I'm going to play the jingle for the captaincy metric. 43 of you here now, so thank you for tuning in. I hope you're slowly coming back from international break. We have starred about 20 questions from the chat throughout this evening. So as soon as the captaincy metric's over, we will go to the live Q&A and answer the questions for Gameweek 9 that you've sent in. But before that, let's go into the captaincy metric. All right, Gameweek 9 captaincy metric. Interestingly, Salah is top. So you've got to look a little bit down until you see Haaland actually on 79. So you got Salah at 95, a jump to Watkins on 89, Son 84, Maddison 83, Isaac 82, Darwin 80, who we don't think is going to start, Diaby as well as up there at 79, and then Haaland at 79 with Fernandes just below at 78. So there's also some kind of interesting people in this top list that aren't normally always in here. The likes of Sterling is down there at 65. Wiss is there at 65. Pedro Neto's made it at 66. Mbeumo is clinging on as well at 69, I think. And Rashford and Trippier. So Alvarez too. So that's everyone. But there are definitely some names I did not expect to see in the captaincy metric. Trippier has really hauled his way up this table, hasn't he? Because it only looks at last 6 and he's 98th percentile for hauls. I don't think many people have got the points he has in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it only looks at the last 6. So, yeah, are you interested in this? Seeing Salah top, does that take away what we were saying earlier about the way Brighton defend, and surely Haaland and Man City want to bounce back, and Rodri's back, and surely Haaland, when you think about those narratives and the factors, I would personally still put him up there, like ahead of Watkins. I would. I don't particularly like Watkins versus West Ham, but here we are. He's second in the metric ahead of Son and Maddison.
Yeah, because of his recent hauls, obviously. But if you're going for Salah, you're betting on chaos. And chaos, who knows how that bet lands, right? I think Salah is a fine captaincy option for this game week. I wouldn't begrudge anybody for going Salah, but I also think it's somewhat unpredictable. So I just kind of know what to expect more from Haaland. I expect at least something, and Haaland is the one. If you're considering ownership in the captaincy, Haaland is the one that can hurt you if you get it wrong, right? If you don't captain Salah but you own him, right? Obviously, then and he hauls. He probably hasn't hurt you. I don't think Salah will be over 100% owned, right? So you'll benefit from his haul
Even last week,
regardless.
yeah. Even last week, I think it was like 35 to 40% ish.
Yeah.
That was with a lot of captains too, right?
So I would say,
yeah, Haaland, I think, is what I've been on since the game reloaded. Just the Brighton factor and just the numbers of owners who are going to be there with us. But I wouldn't begrudge someone going. I think, do you know what puts me off? Like Son, it's just exactly that injury stuff we were talking about, and that just really puts me off. But he does have till Monday. Maybe we wait to see what they say in the presser. it just feels like it's a week where I'm on Haaland, but it's not that obvious that it needs to be him. Like I think Son and Salah and all of these guys are very worthy options. So I think it's going to go down to the wire for me ultimately. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a tough one, and
Not.
then obviously Salah's the early kickoff as well, right? And we just talked about half of Liverpool's players playing on the other side of the
Yeah.
world at midnight on Wednesday before a Saturday game at 12:30. So
Yeah.
there's loads of narratives that go against both Salah and Son, and I think that's what kind of gets me just reverting back to Haaland because it's like I don't like the early kickoff, not because of Gandhi's rule, just because of all the players that travel, and obviously even now, loads of them like Diaz. We've got issues with so many players. With Nunes, has got a knock. I think he's got a dead leg or something. So it's not great. And then Son himself as well. Haaland, obviously he's just had like the heartbreak, right, of Norway not quite qualifying for the Euros. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there is still one last hope through some kind of Nations League qualifier group, or if they got like one last hurrah to try and get in. But
Congratulations to Scotland, by the way.
that's huge, right?
Yeah,
I,
massive.
I don't think like I was speaking to a few people like, and this guy is a massive Scotland national team fan. He said it was only like the third time in his lifetime they've made it. And he's been a Scotland fan for a long time, so it's a really big deal. You're right. So yeah, if you're Scottish in the chat, congrats to you guys. Yeah, I think really it comes down to those three for me. But for in the chat, there was a Q&A question about from Eric Jala asking is Trippier captain sharp for game week 9. I guess obviously it's interesting that Trippier is up here at 75, is it? Yeah, so I think he is a shout for sure.
I
I
agree.
love these kind of attacking fullbacks, multiple avenues to points. It's a lovely opportunity to catch a haul. But I just think with the number of these premium assets that all have these home fixtures, I just feel like if you even have one or two of them in your team, I would always go there. I just can't see myself like going for him over Salah, Son, and Haaland all at home. Like I just can't stomach that. But maybe you're a bit more of a high risk player who wants to
Sure.
really catch a huge haul, get the clean sheet and attacking return. And yeah, I
It's
think that's
not a
perfectly viable.
nonsensical idea. It's one that makes more. I'd captain Trippier over Rashford, who's just below him on the table there.
Yeah. And
With
we've got people
also
talking about
with a
captain in
good matchup.
Rashford. Yeah, that's true. People talk about captain in Rashford in the chat, so that's fair. I think it was William actually. Yeah, he says good differential cap versus the Blades. Yeah, so okay. Salah. Shout out to you, and yeah, I still remember when I pronounced Eze as easy, like easy E. That was a bad day for me. But you live and you learn. Have you heard recently as well that apparently it's not. Apparently it's actually pronounced Eze, Eza. Sorry,
It's Eza. Yeah,
Eza. That's it's not even Eze.
Eza.
It's Eza.
No, it's Eza.
Yeah, so I've learned his name wrong 3 times in a row. But yeah. So hopefully we get better at those. Should we take the questions from the Q&A before we get out of here? I think we try and wrap up quick fire. We have about 18
we
questions.
we can smash the questions as the listeners smash the likes for our answers. How about that?
Exactly. Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
do an exchange.
Yeah, exactly. If we answer your question in the live, please do support us and hit that like button if you enjoyed the episode. We'll
Even if
start
we
with the
answer one
first
of your
one.
friends' questions, smash that
That's
like.
true. Yeah. And on that note, thank you to all the haulers who were here live tonight as well, and all the subscribers in general. We've got our super haulers, David Harrison, Zach, Harbour Boy, Daddy Bot, Greenback Golf, and FPL Robbie. We've got our haulers, Dread FPL Craig Podner, Kevin Rose, which is FPL_Safa, C Hunt, Donny FPL, Oscar Arias, FPL Teacher, Blonde, S Scott M, Tom Gorsuch, Devindra Raj, Lindsay O, FPL DG Boy, Akshay, Dom, Claire FPL, Catherine, William the Jaeger, Harry Not Kane, Neil Sebastian Coop, Benjamin Lockwood, FPL Rubber Ducky, Niels Apples, Nick Khan, Big Mike, FPL Discomfort, General Zod, Qualadi Street Preachers, Jack M, FPL Planner, Jamie Baker, Brett M, and Mark Bond. And our Patreons, Elron, Lucian Gann, FPL California, Fingermabob, Rom Frost, and Mike Burke. We could not do it without all your support, guys. Thank you so much. Let's go to the Q&A, as we said. We'll start with Ballroom Jam. So anyone else worried about players returning late from South American international matches? So this was a topic that we discussed throughout the show, I think. I think ultimately I am, and that's when I wildcarded in Game Week 8. I didn't go for the likes of Darwin or Diaz. I avoided them all. I was just nervous about this travel. So I would love to go there. I would love to see Darwin become an option. I would love to maybe buy him in game week 10 if it's viable and move from someone like Watkins to him if it seems tangible as an option. But for now, I don't think it looks like Darwin's going to start, for example. Alvarez, on the other hand, I think I'd be more optimistic of him starting. He's actually on the thumbnail specifically for the South American players topic. I was going to put Darwin, but then I thought Darwin was already on a thumbnail recently, and Gabe might kill me if Darwin makes it twice in like 3 weeks.
Man. It's too much.
Yeah, so as I'll put Alvarez this time, I also think he's the more likely of the South American travelers to actually play. So, yeah.
Really quickly on South America, I just want to, we gave kudos to Scotland. Venezuela tied Brazil at the Maracanã 1-1 with a bicycle kick from Bello. Incredible goal. And then we beat Chile 3-0. And now we're third in qualifiers for the next World Cup. And and now 6 teams make it instead of 4+1. It's 6+1. So Venezuela is in line to make our first ever World Cup. So fingers crossed for our tiny nation.
I love it. Good luck to you guys. I'll be there wishing you to get to the cup and see you there, hopefully. What's the headgear that Gabe is wearing from GV? So that's the Bigfoot cap, as Podner says. So this is Bigfoot.
It's a Bigfoot surfer.
Bigfoot surfer. There we go.
Yeah.
We have live evil asked earlier any Saka news. So I'm just going to have a look at something. I probably shouldn't be saying this stuff. But, with the shit that happens on the timeline with people giving fake news and real news and guessing news and all kinds of other news and getting news wrong.
We have no news. We just have perspectives.
Yeah, I guess. I'm just having a look. I did have some news. I'm just scrolling to it, but I'm not going to give much about the source because it's a pretty good source. And it's secondhand information, but the reason I'm looking for it is because I want to say the exact words.
Okay.
Because the words themselves are very promising, but they're also non-committal. So ultimately, when I find it, I'll read it out. But the words imply that he should be fine. That Saka should be fine. That's what the words imply. But the way it's worded is because I've got. Oh man, I wish I could find it. I get spammed too much. It's long gone. It's long gone. Okay, here it is.
Okay.
So the exact words are just. It's essentially like if he's okay. It's like is Saka going to play? And the words are something along the lines of, yeah, I hope so. But it's looking fine. That's what I would go with. Wait till the presser. If Arteta says the total opposite of it should be fine, think about how many things Arteta has lied about recently. Just think about that.
And
cool.
I mean, Saka is a hold. He's not a sell, but maybe he's
not
a
hold
buy
regardless.
just yet.
You wait one more week.
Wait 1 week to buy.
Yeah, ideal to wait 1 more week and get that clarity. Because if he's not going to start this weekend, he will be back for the following. Like he'll be fine. He'll be totally fine. So what else do we have? Salah captain from Danish. So I think you already talked about this. He was top of the captaincy metric. Perfectly good choice. And where's the big bouncy Grimsby fan today? So I thought I'd read that out just to send some love to Mariner. He's busy traveling with work. And yeah, he will hopefully be back in a few weeks' time. He's actually traveling nonstop. It's like every day he's in a different country. And it's going to be a few weeks of that, I think, through to almost.
He's doing more traveling than like anything else. More traveling than eating or than like meeting with people. He's en route more than anything else these days.
Exactly. So what else do we have? We have William asked about Trippier. Like I think it was more of sarcasm that Dan Burn just recently extended his contract. He scored against PSG. I mean, this was the idea of covering Trippier with Dan Burn. So I just wanted to read that out just because it was quite funny. I found it quite funny. It's not really a question. Sometimes I read out questions in the live Q&A. Sometimes I read out funny comments. So this is from K7. Besides this game week, so obviously Liverpool versus Everton, is Diaz a good hold going forward? Any quick fire thoughts on that?
100%. Keep Diaz. Good fixtures, super involved, super important to the team and the way they attack. I think Diaz and Salah are the two kind of pillars on the edges there.
Yep. Yep, no, I agree. I think you've been a big Diaz fan and prop from the beginning.
Yeah.
He's another player who I think you maybe had in your team like Isaac at some point this season, or do you still have him?
Who
Diaz,
no,
Luis
no,
Diaz.
I
Oh, no, you
don't.
don't have
I
him.
almost started the season with him.
That's what it was. Yeah, I think I
Yeah,
remember your game week 1 team because you really like him. So
yeah.
K7 is Neto a good asset with good value for money? So far he's proven to be right. I don't think
He
there's
has
anything
yeah,
wrong with him.
he has been recently. And the team seemed to be getting better, so it should continue, but a lot of it has come from individual efforts. So you always have to question the sustainability of it when it's not systemic, when it's individual like that. We'll see if they
Yeah,
can develop some kind of
some of those
systemic attack.
returns have felt a bit like fluky attacking, like assisting returns, and
Yeah.
not something you can probably rely on. Thank you to Jasker and Singh becoming a hauler on YouTube, becoming a YouTube member. So obviously anyone in the chat who wants to join on Patreon or YouTube, you can join us in the Discord community and get the data shared in there in advance. And obviously the data will still stay free on the show for everyone, but it's just a nice place for us all to chat together, about 40 of us there. So let's keep going through the questions quick fire so we can get out of here in good time. So I think we'd already talked about Sufal before, so we can go past that one. Get the FPL, good to see you. They'd mentioned a Scott McTominay or McDip punt for 1 week because of Amrabat being potentially injured. Just another one of those interesting ones I wanted to read out. I am not going to even give you the honor of like a yes, that's a good punt.
We've given our thoughts on United, right?
Yeah. Go to the United timestamp. Go for Morgan Gibbs White if you want to punt. Find someone else.
Or actually, he's a United fan. Maybe skip the United part and don't listen to it.
Yeah,
And
maybe
move
don't
on.
listen to it because we don't want to lose you as a friend.
That's
So
right.
to be fair, I tried to be balanced. I do think you guys are going to come good. I'm just really into Hoyland as an option from the team if I was going to pick now. Nate House question: which combo do you prefer? Trippier, Bowen, Alvarez, or Dan Burn, DRB, and Watkins? Just to keep it simple. So it's a structure question. Like, should your
Trips, Bowen,
6.5
Alvarez.
be Trips or should it be DRB? Trips, Bowen, Alvarez. Yeah,
Over Burn, Mitoma, Watkins.
I think so. Yeah. It's close though. I think Mitoma,
It's
Watkins,
close.
Burn is
It's a
very there's
good question.
marginal there. That is a tough one.
It's a tough one. Mitoma's fixtures are going to be getting so good, and it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, because the question is, Bowen is a bit on the pricey side, but it's kind of like Bowen and Watkins are like the two kind of talismanic guys in the team, and then like Alvarez, Mitoma, Diaby, like the exciting high ceiling punts.
Yeah,
But then in
yeah.
one of those routes, you end up with Burn instead of Trips. So it's kind of, I can see why you'd go for the Trippier option.
Yeah.
Cool. So Val just says Bruno Fernandes as well as Son is a good captaincy option in Gameweek 9. Jasker and Singh mentioned Robertson being out for up to 10 weeks potentially. Before we leave, any thoughts on Ward-Prowse? So William currently owns Ward-Prowse. Any glowing thoughts or reviews to share there?
I think you nailed it when you said he's just, he hasn't been ticking lately, right? But West Ham are a team that rely very much on set pieces, and they will win set pieces. They have the players to win set pieces on the perimeter. So I think James Ward-Prowse he's a fine hold. However, there are other emerging assets. So if he continues to kind of like lag the way he has been recently, then getting rid of him. I mean, if Gordon starts firing again, like James Ward-Prowse to Gordon, or you can even go like really low, right? So he's a current hold, but I would be just because of the set pieces, and that's kind of why you got him. James Ward-Prowse is not one to, you don't jump on and off of Ward-Prowse. But if you are getting cold
I feel
feet,
like when
I
you
think that's
buy
fair.
him, like you kind of want to, like you bought him to hold, and Game Week 10 is like the holy grail of the fixtures. And
Yeah.
you could argue he's fine in any fixture. Like there is no bad fixture for him because of his route to points. And West Ham can get those kind of set piece returns against any team. But I think ultimately I would not be getting cold feet yet, but keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
So we got this question from Colm. I don't think this is possible to even answer in the quick fire time we have left, so I'm just going to read it out, see what people in the chat think. Is it mad to go without Son, Salah, or any Liverpool forward attacking asset? So my question would be like, who do you own? Because like, where is the rest of your money? Like, I'm assuming you have Haaland.
Well,
Let's say you have Alvarez, but who do you possibly own? Like, do you just have United, Rashford still instead
No,
of these
well,
players?
I would imagine he's going with emerging assets like Brighton, whose fixtures change, Arsenal, who are going to go into a nice run of
Yeah,
fixtures
they're
as
all
well.
cheaper than these guys. So, like,
Villa,
we know the 5 million that you get from Son to Saka and Salah to Mitoma. Like, where's that money going? Like, that's
so
my
like a
question.
front line, right, of Holland, Watkins, and Jesus, right? You have
Okay.
Saka and maybe Odegaard in your midfield along with Madison,
So I like all this, but
Trippier.
the question is, does he have that?
Yeah, we would
Or
have
has
to
he just
see
got,
it more
or
of
has
it.
he just gone and put it all on Trent? That's my
Yeah,
question
hopefully
for you,
not.
Colm. What have
Right,
you done
right.
with that money, mate? This is a really tough one from Leo Gomez. What do you think of selling Rashford and Saka for Salah and a -4 here? So it's tough without knowing the other 13 players in the squad. I don't like these questions in isolation because there might be a part of your squad I think is weaker that I would use to get there. For example,
Mhm.
someone that isn't Saka to get to Salah. But without knowing that, it's tough for me to give you a genuine answer. I would not be taking a -4 the week out of the international break, personally, unless
Especially
you
for
get
Saka when you're going to want Saka next week.
like game week 10 onwards is like everyone's looking to buy him. So
Yeah.
I would maybe hold fire and use 2 free transfers and a -4 the following week to do some proper surgery with 3 transfers instead of 2
Yeah.
transfers on a -4. I just feel like you may get a bit more information and just see like what happens, and maybe another asset becomes someone you can move on. I would wait, but I'm normally more of a roll transfer kind of guy than a hit personally. And yeah, that would be my view there. TS editor, just last couple of questions asks Luis Diaz or Simicas for the next 4 game weeks.
Oh, wow.
4 game weeks only. I need to see Liverpool's defensive fixtures for those 4 game weeks to give you my genuine response.
So they play Everton, Forest, Luton, Brentford.
Yeah, yeah,
Simicas
yeah.
because you
For
know he'll play.
4.4 million, yeah. With Robertson,
And
if we're saying 10 weeks, I'll go there. I'll go there all day.
yeah, yeah.
Everton, Forest, Luton, Brentford, Simicas, 4.4 million. Yeah.
3 of those at home.
Yeah. It doesn't get better than that. I know you can say the same about Diaz, but there is way more depth in the attack. And Simicas, as I said, I don't even care if he gets no clean sheets in those 4. That's like, that would be great, obviously. But I would be getting him for attacking return, hoping that he's going to do something interesting, like an assist. But so I'm just saying there is a couple questions. No worries, Leo. Hopefully that goes well. Yeah, I think come and ask again next week. Once we see what happens and Saka's fitness levels, and obviously if you get late news that Saka's like definitely not going to be in the squad or something, maybe there's the opportunity there to jump and just be aggressive, take the hit, and try and get him or someone else back later. But for now, I would roll with what we know. So the questions that are left, Gabe, and we are going to get out of here in under 2 hours, so we are really going to leave. But these are like less FPL related, so I just thought, why not ask them, because we don't get these normally. So one of them was like, why did Brentham loan Raya to Arsenal? So I think Bayern tried to loan him as well. They wanted a loan with an option to buy. And I know other clubs were in for him. I know we were in for him originally when Brentford came to the Prem and they weren't having it. He was the goalkeeper Arteta first tried to get. I just think they were trying to, do good business. You make good relationships, you build bridges. Maybe they know Arsenal might cough up a lot of money for Tony in the future. You want to have good relationships with the technical directors and the selling parties of all these clubs. And ultimately, Raya was never going to stay there and sit on the bench. And they're planning to move ahead. Like they'd already bought his replacement. Spurs didn't want to offer the money up front or something, or he didn't want to loan, or
That's
who
the
knows.
key. That's the key. They're a selling club, and you sell high, and you bring in the next one.
This is the peak cinch. So like,
Yeah,
they know they'll get the money from us. Like this loan will be made permanent, but they
yeah,
just know
yeah.
that they need to help us out and scratch our back to scratch theirs. Like we need to do financial fair play. Let's loan him. Let's charge a small amount now, and we've got a buyer for the future. We don't want him sitting here causing mayhem and disharmony. So that's why I think they loan him, because he's not part of the long-term plans. And then Elron's got a final question. Should Smith Rowe move abroad? Maybe playing in La Liga or Serie A would be better from an injury-prone small lad. So maybe, like, I think it's kind of last chance saloon for him this season. I think they were very adamant that even though they could have sold him this summer, that there's no point because you kind of be selling him low, right? Like if you were going to sell him, he had his high, then he's not played really for 18 months. And like, why sell him now low when he's finally recovered? So I would say that calling him a small lad is pretty ridiculous because when I saw a photo of him now, he's had a growth spurt, which is why he had the groin surgery, because he's now shot up from like 5'9" to he's the same height as like the centre back.
I think we can just say yes, he would benefit from the move. He would definitely benefit from the move. He should move. All players that aren't playing should move somewhere else.
If you're not playing, you should move. But I think that what I'm getting at is that I don't think that he's small. Like I think he had a multi-year injury that he finally did the surgery to fix, caused by a growth spurt, and now he's a big lad and he's as big as our centre backs. So if you now watch him when he comes on, he's a big, strong guy now. He's not the Emil Smith-Rowe you remember from FPL in 2020. 3 years has gone by, he's grown into a man. So I think just there, I think he will stay. But we are at time, 2 hours, as we said. We are going to get out of here, and we will see you for the review next week, hopefully, and the matchups for Game Week 10. May your arrows be green, everyone, in Game Week 9. Hope you enjoyed the international break, and yeah, let's go net that haul, as we say, baby, right?
That's right. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and peace.
Take care, guys. See you next week.